Here's what I know. The ability at the line of scrimmage to have the stones. When you have thrown one pass in your history in the league, and it was a bad ball, frankly.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was very Carson Wentzian.
forgetting that it was 3 throws, the first throw was really bad. It was
Yeah.
like 100 miles an hour, and over Austin Eckler said, nobody's talking about that, nor should we. It's a throw. Who cares? He was amped up. He had energy, whatever. But my point in bringing it up is only to say, now I'm at the line and I'm going, well, I just had a screen to a running back that I threw 8,000 miles an hour over his head. Why don't we go down the field?
Yeah.
Like, that part is what I'm excited about. The fact that you saw what you needed to see, because that was why I wanted him to play in the preseason. You were out last week, but there was a lot of talk early in the week about, is he going to play in this game? Does he need to? Remember, all the way going back to when Joey Theismann
That's
said,
right.
don't play him in the preseason. I wanted to see Jayden Daniels break a sweat and get up to the line of scrimmage and see what Cliff Kingsbury told him. When you see this, do something. And he did that. We got it right away. Forget that he dropped it in the bucket. That's amazing. That's awesome. But we know he can throw the deep ball, and we know he's got the big time arm. The mental part of this, to me, is where the hairs on the back of the neck stand up a little bit, and you go, is this a thing? Could this be a thing? That's where I was excited.
Easy to be. I mean, again, the effortlessness with which he jogged into the end zone, knowing that there's about 7 or 8 other gears if he needed it, right, in terms of his sprint speed. But it was the play, it's open, it's done. He can, just sort of casually jog to the corner. He did that, but knowing that there's more there to keep defenses off balance, that throw, how perfect it was. And you're right, that individual throw, we're going to rave about it. And rightfully so, because it was excellent. But it's everything around it that I think is probably more important, right? It's the command, it's reacting to things you've seen. It's that supercomputer that every quarterback needs to have of, all right, if I see this, then this. If this is my next data point, then that. If this safety shows that he's doing this, but is really doing that. The disguises, the things that are going to be thrown at you. By the way, in a month's time, Todd Bowles is not here for your vacation. He's not here for you to get a soft landing spot. He'll be blitzing the instant you get off the bus. So they're going to, I'll have all sorts of crazy looks, different formations and things to try to confound you and an offensive line that's been kind of thrown together. And, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as the show goes on. A lot of good out of that offensive line, especially on the interior. Some question marks on the outside still persist. But for Daniel specifically, that first throw to Eckler, on that screen pass, it just looked so amped up, right? Didn't get his feet around, and it looked like he was trying to disguise and not let everyone know that's where it was going. Just never got right and just shreddered that thing 1,000 miles an hour, just nowhere close. And it felt like after that he went, okay, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was that first time you got hit by a pitch or your first at bat, whatever. Oh, that's over now. Whatever that was is gone. It's out of my system. I can now be myself.
Yeah, you're allowed those at this point of your career and in the preseason specifically. It's going to happen. I think he continued his strong summer. That's what I would say. Like, if I am writing the lead here, it's not he's arrived or it's over, put it in Sharpie. The superstar has cometh, right? It's just everything that he's been doing this summer so far has been in the good column for the most part. This is the next good column past test. He went out. He only threw the 3 passes. I think if you heard like the dialogue, and this is how starving we are in this town for a quarterback, and I'll put myself in the same bucket on the text chains I'm on, or some of the, I doing an Instagram live right after the game, any of the stuff that I was doing breaking down the game this weekend. I'm as guilty of this as anyone, because you get really excited after that big time throw. But I think if you were to hear the reaction to the game and then go and look at the box score and you see that he threw 3 passes, you're like, what? Wait a second.
Seriously,
what?
guys?
Everyone's going crazy about these. And one of them is the one we're talking about that is just a bad pass. The other one is amazing, incredible play. And the other was a wide receiver screen. So the sample size here is 3, and it's basically one play that has everyone frothing at the mouth. But I think that's okay because there was so much good in the play before the ball even got snapped for a young quarterback. It was a telling play. It was a revealing play. That throw is what he made his money doing at LSU, by the way. Outside the numbers, down the field, his guy won, dropping it in the bucket. He's been doing that beautifully at training camp. And the big story, at least for the detractors coming out as a passer, was middle of the field in breaking stuff. We haven't seen as much of that in practice, and we didn't see any of that in the game. There's only 3 throws, obviously. But I think he has a special ability on whatever that is. That deep shot, sideline type throw down the field. He's been doing it for years. That is a strength. So for him to show that right away in a game makes you feel pretty good that he
Indeed.
can give you that right away in Tampa.
Yeah, there's it's eye of the beholder when it comes to the middle of the field type stuff. That either didn't happen a lot because it couldn't happen a lot, or because we have an unbelievably prolific offense with wide receivers that win on the outside, and we'll score 50 points a week just doing that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would imagine that he can't do it. There's no reason. He's got all the physical tools.
And
It's
that's
just
where
that
I was
he
going.
hasn't really done a lot of it yet.
Yeah, that's where I was going. And you better believe, again, NFL teams are very aware of that on both sides, whether they were interested in acquiring him or now are going up against him. Let's see if you can. You're going to have to. Like, this is the league, dude. They will take things away. There are defensive coordinators who get paid a lot of money figuring out, what do you do best? What are you most comfortable with? All right, now I'll remove that. Now what are you going to do, right? So, again, I think there's a million parts to this process. Let's say he'd gone 0 for 3, fumbled a snap, and thrown a pick, right? What we'd be doing is saying, it's a really small sample. This is not something we should overreact to, good or bad. This is a really small sample now that we have the sample as good. We shouldn't be overreacting to it. What we should be doing, though, is building sort of a viewpoint here based on, as you said, the reporting, based on, some of the vibes that have kind of come out. And listen, I went back and looked, there are a million quotes. There are current players. See if I can find this quote real quick. There are current players who said this about a quarterback that's not Jayden Daniels. He's our future. I feel like we found our quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years. I truly believe that. Current players saying this about another quarterback. I know the guys are fired up. We got a dude back there. Not about Jayden Daniels.
Sam Howell.
Just last year. You could go back and find him for Carson Wentz and find him for name that dude. But it's hard to sell people on the nuance and how different it feels to me, but it really does. And maybe it's my own blind wish casting. Maybe it's my own hope that's kind of gotten in my way.
I said some of that, and I don't mean you and me necessarily, but people in town said some of that last year with Sam because he's younger than, say, a Wentz or a Fitzpatrick or whatever. But this is different, and it's just obvious to anybody. He's the number 2 overall pick. They've only had one of those. It was Robert Griffin. He's the Heisman Trophy winner at the top of the board, and he's got a skill set that in today's NFL could be tantalizing, which I want to get to. Here's what else I loved about his one drive. Designed runs and read option looks. He had the designed keeper for a touchdown where he didn't really show any of the speed, but he got around the edge, was beautifully blocked, mauling tight ends out front, including Cole Turner, I think John Bates on that play. Really, really well called design play at the goal line. There's going to be a bunch of those, I think, this year. But several times, they didn't have any design keepers, nor should they in a preseason game. But the first play of the game was a read option look, essentially. It turned into inside zone because I'm sure they told him, hey, man, you're not keeping this. Brian Robinson's going off right tackle. But he can pull that and get around the edge. That was the first play of the game. There was a play later with Driscoll at quarterback, their number 3. And when Jeff Driscoll was in the game.
After that penalty, so it was 1st and 18, I think, the one you're talking about?
I don't remember the down and distance, but he kept the football on what was a designed, like, read option type keeper. And they had Ben Sinnott blow a guy up on the left side of the formation. He went around the left side, and he ended up getting down for a nice rushing gain. And Driscoll showed off his legs a little bit there. He picked up 16 yards. A, if that's Jayden Daniels, it's twice that maybe. But B, that's in the playbook. And my point is, I know we've argued about this, and a lot of people have talked about this. He should be running a lot. I think they're going to run him a lot. And the threat of him in making teams play 11 on 11, what I covered back in 2012, is going to make his life so much easier as a passer, it's hard to even quantify. Ask Robert Griffin about the half the field reads and the one defender you've got to see. Is he coming up or is he going back? Is he sitting still? And if I read this one guy, then I know where I'm going with the football. The whole field opens up to him. But I think they're going to, just based on seeing a little bit of what the offense looked like, even when he wasn't in there, I think we're going to see him routinely like 7-8 carries, 60, 70 yards, something like that. And I think people are going to be really surprised that he runs a ton, and I am here for it. They got to keep him healthy. They've got to get to a point where they can trust him to protect his body. But I really do think that's going to be a big part of this offense, as well it should.
So I do too. And to me, that was less about, I think there's some good points by you in there. But the thing that I noticed is it's a lot of shotgun and a lot of, the back kind of set to his left or to his right, which lends itself to those kinds of looks, right? So we're learning about Kingsbury's offense in real time. We've seen what he did at air raid style college offenses. We saw what he did with Kyler Murray, and we were wondering how much is that because you're in the Big 12, or how much of that is because your quarterback's 5'5".
We also probably haven't seen what they're actually going to run a lot of.
Right.
Because remember, in like the 2012 preseason, Griffin's first August, we never saw one play out of
There was
pistol
no pistol.
or basically any read option at all in the whole preseason. So there's maybe an entire different look come September anyway.
That's fair. But I guess the point I'm making is everything seemed to be in that our goal is to keep the defense flat-footed. Not a defensive lineman, obviously, because they're engaging, but everyone else has to sit and wait for us to go through what we're going to go through. And that's the philosophy. If our guys have a running start and your guys are sitting still, flat-footed, just guessing, trying to figure out where the ball's going to be, we're now at an advantage, whether it's run, pass, keeper, bootleg, and everything in between.